Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us at this time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, thank you. First of all, maybe you can start by the forum itself. Maybe you can elaborate more in terms of target, in terms of the topics that will be discussed, and in terms of the outcome from the forum itself.
Yes, as a business chamber between Europe and Malaysia, we're of course always trying to discover new ideas on how we can promote trade. But as an NGO, the opportunities are not always there, and there are limitations in terms of budget. Now, last year, the EU granted some funds for which specific projects could apply in order to stimulate trade. And there was a specific chapter to stimulate trade between EU and Malaysia. And we applied for that fund through a specific project that we built based on experiences from our business leaders in the region over the past few years. And trade is usually stimulated by similar regulations and rules and platforms. And within the food environment, there is a lot of different rules and regulations. And in Europe, we've had quite a bit of experience over the past many years, since we are a unified trade platform for quite a number of years, and new countries have been added and so on. And so all of these countries need to be somehow aligned in terms of rules and regulations on a food safety platform. And we thought if we can somehow stimulate that from happening with Malaysia, then that would be very beneficial. And because of the EU support, we are now able to consider such a forum, a platform to debate such a big topic. And because next year Malaysia is the chair of ASEAN, we thought like, okay, why don't we further our ambitions a little bit more, and we don't limit ourselves to just Malaysia, but to ASEAN. After all, Malaysia is truly Asia. So we thought that was a great match, and therefore combining the ASEAN food regulatory and academic environment and linking it with the EU food regulatory and academic environment, we thought it was a great opportunity to see how we can discover and explore mutual benefits there.
It's going to be business and business only.
It's going to be mainly business to business in terms of like, what are the questions or what are the challenges being faced. But obviously, food always sometime down the chain ends up with the consumer. And it is in order to stimulate the dialogue and to make sure that the regulatory authorities are supported in their drive to regulate in a uniform way. It is good that there is a solid consumer awareness about food safety. And when a consumer buys a food product in the supermarket and he sees certain things, whether that is related to nutritional values on the packaging, related to statements that are made on the packaging, it is important that the consumer understand what they mean and that they have a good feeling about the honesty of the message. And when you say something that is high in a certain nutritional property, high in vitamins, high in fiber, what is the meaning of high? It means very different things to different people. Aligning these kind of things is important and will ultimately stimulate trade. And so if we could generate somehow via social media and directly possibly, but that's more challenging, an increased awareness from the consumer, that would definitely stimulate the whole debate as well. So wherever possible, we will try to reach out to the consumer.
I want to talk about the consumer awareness after this, but first maybe in terms of food safety itself, the challenges within ASEAN itself, how do you view this?
Well, we have somehow summarized the whole debate. I mean, food safety, food security is a very, very broad debate. But we thought that it would be interesting to zoom in on a few aspects. And we zoomed in on 4 specific elements around food safety and food security. One element is shelf life. Second one, traceability. Third one, labeling. And a fourth one, cold chain. And maybe I can elaborate a little bit about those, very briefly, about those 4 topics. First of all, labeling. I mentioned it a little bit already. Labeling is a very challenging element in that debate. Labeling has 2 aspects to it. It has first to do with the labeling on the ingredients mentioned inside the food packaging. And of course, you know, a lot of flavors, a lot of texture providers, they are a little bit of trade secrets to the manufacturer themselves. They do not want to divulge.
Yes.
Okay, so you have that challenge. On the other side, you have the challenge of transparency towards the consumer. The consumer wants to know what's inside a food product. So how do you regulate that? That is so that's one aspect of labeling. Okay, what do you require the manufacturer to put on as a label? A little bit summarized under what's done already, many food products, caloric value, dietary fibers, etc. But even there, it is important that the definitions of, for example, dietary fiber and caloric value are the same in all the countries, which is not always the case. So that is one aspect. A second aspect of labeling is actually basically saying what are the health benefits of a product. Saying that something is the best here or super there, it needs to be regulated. It is important. You cannot overclaim. And the general rule of thumb is food can never claim to be a cure of any disease. Okay, it can prevent you from having a certain disease, but it shall never claim to be a cure of any disease. That's where you go into the pharma level. So whenever food manufacturers go into that line, I think that it is important that that is somewhat regulated. Second aspect is the element of cold chain. Managing cold chain in an ideal environment would be from the food manufacturer all the way up to putting it in your mouth, so to speak. But you know the challenges by buying a bucket of ice cream in a retailer, put it in your car, 35 degrees outside, and get it somewhat intact in your top freezer shelf at your home. That's already a challenge. So you can imagine the challenge from getting it in a factory somewhere, thousands of miles away into a retailer. So that is an important element. A third element is the shelf life. Shelf life is for every party in the value chain, in the supply chain, a daily challenge, because when something draws near to expiry, consumer is less inclined to buy it. So how do you handle that scenario? Is the product really no longer consumable? Who shall make the judgment? And how can we enforce to make sure that when a shelf life is mentioned, that is actually acted upon properly?
Yes.
And the fourth element, which recently I think has been debated quite good and was managed very well, is the element of traceability. Traceability is related to a food problem. It is important when a food problem is identified, you can scale it down. That is very important. And the consumer shall also trust such information. That's why we want to draw in that consumer awareness as well. So when a problem occurs, everywhere a problem can occur, it's important that that problem can be scaled down to its actual size, that we avoid what is called a food scare. A food scare is by insufficiently informing the broader public. They believe that a specific product is completely bad because somehow it suffered some damage along the way. So if you can, through modern software and supply chain solutions, somehow zoom in where the problem occurred and limit it to a specific production batch, you can transfer to the consumer, we apologize, this is what happened to this batch. Everything else is perfectly okay. Okay, no need to throw that away. There's a lot of food wastage in the world.
That is the 4 key themes for the forum itself. Now, we have less than 1 minute. Maybe we can discuss about the standard, because each of these countries, they have different standard in terms of when it comes to food safety, be it in ASEAN or Asia as a whole. So maybe we can discuss, should we have one standard for food safety in the region itself?
Food safety scientifically basically means the same thing to all people around the world. The only difference is the speed and the way that you're going to implement it and enforce it. I think that's where the biggest challenge lies in terms of enforceability and implementation speed.
All right, thank you so much for joining us at this time for the discussion on the EU-ASEAN Food Safety Forum. This is all the time we have today.
If I may add one more thing.
Of course.
We do have the support of the Ministry of Health for this whole project. So we welcome very much this approach and this support. And we hope that Malaysia will use this as an additional opportunity to profile itself in the ASEAN community to create a uniform platform for food safety and food regulation.
All right, thank you so much. Look forward for the forum itself. Thank you so much.